Okay, so in order to get started here with the Gravit Designer, if you're having issues right from the get-go, if you scroll down on the classwork page, and this vector drawing unit is everything that we need to start with. So I started it on April 6th. Basically, what your goal here is to read through and try to figure out the tools and familiarize yourself with the program. So you're going to be going through the basic sections and go through that. So so what you need to do first is you need to create a spring scene using the drawing tools in Gravit, and then upload your final result to your Wix page. So it says you can rename it the page on your Wix page to vector drawing. So that's your first project to get familiar with this Gravit Designer. So I have linked here all of the different things that you need to be familiar with it. So for example, if you click on this, it brings you to the basics of the interface. So it tells you what each thing is. It explains it underneath. So here's your canvas, right? Number 2 is your toolbar, which is this area up here. The one that we're going to be using is probably going to be white here. And then we've got the layers panel. All this stuff is just the interface, okay? So you need to be familiar with it by, going through this material. So this Gravit Designer documentation is searchable. So if there's something that you specifically need help with, like saving files, it'll give you options to click on it, and it runs through how to save and how to export and all of those different things. Okay, so but in order, how do you get started with Gravit? That's a very good question. So if you, I'm just going to open up a new window here just so that I can show you what it looks like. So if you literally type in Gravit Designer into Google, and you click on it, it'll bring you to this page here. And what you want to do is click on this Start Now up in the top right hand corner. And what you'll do is you'll create an account. Use your school My Tools to Go account, put your first name, last name, make a password, and this will give you an account where you can save your work online. Okay, so once you have your account set up, you're going to go to the Gravit Designer page, which will look more like this once I refresh this. You'll end up with something looking like this. So when you first open the program, it's going to give you this kind of look. So it's going to, you create design. So every new project that we do, we are going to create this new design. So we're going to click on this web desktop size, and you're going to use this website huge. So Gravit Designer has all of the drawing tools and stuff are all right here on your toolbar. All of the properties and everything will be shown here on the right hand side, and then the left hand side we have our layers and stuff. So remember in Photoshop when we were doing those projects, we had layers. This is where those things are going to be. It's a very similar program to Photoshop, but it's made for drawing vectors. So if you want to become familiar with the tools, obviously you're going to have to kind of look here with the drawing tools. You click on this menu here, and it's going to start explaining to you how each one of these tools work. So the pen tool is one of them, and it's located next to the knife and shape tools on the menu here, right? So the pen tool is right here. It's also called the path tool. So what you would do in order to do that first project that I'm asking you to do is create a spring scene would be to use this pen tool. So if you click on the down arrow, it'll open a menu underneath. You can see more things, but you want to use the pen tool. So I've asked you guys to make a spring scene. So in order to do that, this pen tool is all about clicking. So if I click and drag to another location, it basically makes a shape, whatever shape that I draw, and it adds the color that it has as the border here. So right now it sets the border, which is the path, the line around the outside is black, and it is sub size 1 pixel. So if I wanted to, I have that selected. So if I could change this to 5 and I press enter, it will make my lines thicker. Okay, you'll also notice that on your layers panel, this path showed up over here. So what that is that's this drawing right here that I have, and it's got a fill right now of white. So if you wanted to change that color, you could adjust it to a different color. That's up to you. And then you've got different options to change, like the opacity of it. If you want it to be a little bit see-through, you could adjust this number and make it lower. So I put it at 50%, you'll notice that it kind of dims it. If I had something behind there, it would see through that. If you put it at 100%, which is what it was, that means it's not see-through at all. So over here is where you have all your properties about your lines and stuff. So with this pen tool, very quickly, I'm just going to delete everything that I have here. If you grab the arrow tool, you can delete what you have. So you get started and you start drawing a spring scene. So for my case, I'm just going to probably take the pen tool and or the path tool, and I'm going to make black. I'll have black as my border, and I want to have green, so I can take this little slider here, and I'm going to pick a green, maybe a little bit more greeny, for grass, because I want to have a spring scene. Okay, so I just, this is clicking for me on accident here. If you press return, it stops your line, and then you can press Control and Z to undo what you've done, which is what I just did there. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a rectangle here at the bottom. I'm just going to click the rectangle tool, and at the very bottom I'm just going to put some grass. So just draw a rectangle, and I'm going to start like that. So there's no fill on this rectangle because I have to add it, so I have to go back and change the color. So I put my spring scene, I draw some grass. Great. So right here now, this added this rectangle in this layers panel. So if you double click on that, I can change this to grass. So now I know that my grass is this layer right here. You can also lock the layer, and you can also hide it if you want to. So you have those toggle the visibility, and you can toggle whether it's locked or not. So I like to lock things that I don't need to touch. So once I've finished my grass, I'm just going to leave it like that. So the next step would be to start becoming familiar with these drawing tools. So I'm going to just very quickly draw a tree. So I'm going to grab the path tool, and I'm going to leave it as the borders being black, and I'm going to change the fill to be a brown color. Kind of go more on the reddish orange brown here. Okay, it doesn't have to be perfect, but darker brown would probably be better. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw a simple tree. So if I click and just draw the rectangle portion of my tree, go like that, I've got my tree shape. So I can double click on this path, and I'm going to call it trunk, or tree trunk would be probably more appropriate. And then grab the ellipse tool. So this is going to be how I'm going to draw my leaves on the tree. So I'm going to draw a series of ellipses. So these are the drawing tools that I'm talking about that when you're there. So one of the things that you do need to do is you have to go through the tutorials that I've given you here. It teaches you how to do the colors. It teaches you how to deal with layer groups, teaches working with images. So all of these things are, you know, something that you need to go through. So if you're having issues after that, you can maybe ask specific questions. You know, exactly like I'm having trouble with changing layer names, or I'm having trouble with using the pen tool to draw whatever, right? So you need to have a little bit more specific questions so that it's easier to assist you. Once you go back, you got my ellipse tool. I set my color to green, and then I'm just gonna draw a series of ellipses. It makes, I don't know why it deselects the tool after every time, but if you go back up and just click it again, it'll allow you to draw another one. So you can draw a few of these, random, and then you've got yourself a tree. So if you wanted to, sometimes you can actually put like an outline on all of this and all that kind of stuff. You want to put black lines around the outside. So if you could add a border to these just by clicking on this plus button, and then it will add a border to your shape. So that is something that does happen. So you can do that just to provide a little bit of definition in the tree. I mean, it's up to you what you want. I kind of don't like using those just for my shapes. So that's one thing drawn. So a spring scene, what's next? You got a flower or something like that. So then you're going to use the same tools that you just did to draw flowers. So right now, you'll notice that with these tree leaves that I've drawn, there's all of these ellipses here. So one of the things that you can do to help organize yourself is you could click on this new layer option. And what that does is it gives you a group. So I can call this leaves. And then I can take all of these. I clicked on the first one and I hold the shift button down and click on the last one to select them all. And then I can drag them up and then I let go of them like that. And then now all of those ellipses are inside of the leaves so that I'm able to organize and move things around. So I don't have to move things individually anymore. Like I can, you can click and move the things all together. Okay. So you have that capability to organize that. So your first job will be to do that. Make a spring scene, draw a flower, draw things. One of the things about the pen tool that I will show you is you can draw curvy lines or you can draw straight lines. So if you take the pen tool, doesn't matter what color I'm dealing with right now with the pen tool, but if I click and I draw and just click once, I haven't clicked a second time, and then I go to a new spot and I click, you'll notice that every time I click, it makes a straight intersection. So each of these anchor points that are created, they have this type of joint, this straight joint, which means the line comes into it straight and it leaves it straight. So it's like a hard corner. There's three other kinds. There's mirrored, there's disconnected, and then there's asymmetrical. So there's three other different kinds of joints. So if you click on an anchor point, like right now this one is selected, and I change this to mirrored, you'll notice that these little handles show up on it. So what you can do is if you use the sub-select tool, which is underneath of the pointer, you can click on these points, individual points, and you can adjust what type it is. But you'll notice on this one, once I click that mirrored option, it gives me these two little handles. So when I use the sub-select tool, you'll notice I can pull this out and it changes how it's curved, up or down and all that kind of stuff. So, and then you can also change the location of this. So if you're drawing a flower or something like that and you want to put, you know, some nice actual curves to things to make like a nice drawing, you could use your pen tool and you could, you know, make like a petal. You could do something like this where you just draw like a triangle shape, but then you can modify. I'm just going to do it very quickly just to kind of show you what I'm talking about here. It's not this is not going to be perfect, so I'm literally just doing this something very quickly. Okay, let's just pretend that that's my really, really ugly flower. Grab the sub-select tool, click on one of these points, and if you change it to mirrored, it instantly makes it a petal. So you can adjust the shape of it, you can bring this in, move it around, and then you can make actual petals of a flower that way. Again, you can also click on these disconnected options. So that means that these two are disconnected. So notice how the other one doesn't move anymore on the opposite side. So those two things are disconnected. So that's one way of making like pointy intersections between things. Or you could change it to asymmetric, which means you can have different lengths. They both move together when you're tipping them around, but then you can have different lengths of these little handles on each side, which means that they're, you know, you can adjust the curve coming in. So all it is the curve coming in. Now, how can you draw those as you're going? Well, there's definitely a way to do that. If you grab your pen tool or path tool and you click and drag, you'll notice that it gives you the handles. And then you click and drag and it gives you the handle. So as you're drawing, you can click and drag as you add things, and that will allow you to draw curved lines automatically. If you don't want to do that and you'd rather do it the other way, which is a little bit more predictable, you can just go click, 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 and use the straight ones, and then go to your sub-select tool and then click and then change the type over here. So you just click on each individual anchor point, click on the type. So right now I'm kind of basically drawing like almost a circle here. After I get this one, right, it drew like a circle that I have, and then again you can shorten it up and do whatever you want. You can move things around, you can draw whatever you want. Okay, so that should get you started. Create a spring scene, and then once you're done, so let's pretend that my spring scene is done. Once I'll delete this nonsense that I have here. So let's pretend it's done. I have my sky. You're going to do a lot better job of drawing something. you want to make sure that you save it all the time. So you can click save, and what that will do, it'll ask you to save it on your cloud. So definitely save it in your cloud first, so then that way there it's attached to your account. So you can see it's got my email address right here, so it's in my account, and if I click save, it'll be there. So I can come back and open that file from the cloud if I wanted to. You'll notice that it saved it. Okay, so that's step one. You got to make sure that you save your work as you go. And then if you need to export a PNG, you just come to the file menu, click export PNG, and then that will give you a picture of that, and you can save that onto your computer, and then you can upload that to the Google Drive, and then you can click import to place images. So if you need to open like an outside image into here, you can navigate in your computer to where it's located, and then you also have the ability to download a file, which gives you the option to download a GV design file, and that's the actual file that has all the layers and all that stuff in it. So that's basically working for this. Okay, so that should be enough to get you started.